So I'm trying to get my brain wrapped around what I want to say, and the only
Yeah.
as far what
Go ahead.
the only as far as I got was I was trying to figure out the year this happened. So and what I figured was it was I think it was 1974. So I was 39. Or I was about to be 30. No, I think I was already 39, and I'm trying to remember what else I was going to say about that. I was 39. That's all I can remember, which is really just
a
couple.
Story.
Is that the end? Okay,
is that
cut.
The whole story?
Yeah, I was only a little bit older than what you are now.
Mm-hmm.
What you're 37, right? Right?
Yep.
Okay, so I was just a little older than that, and I was working at the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, and I was probably, when looking back, I guess I would say or at least I thought I was kind of in my prime. The late 30s is a pretty good time if you haven't figured that out already. Have you ever thought of that?
Well,
No?
Yeah, but no. I'm interested. You said you thought you were in your prime, but do you have a different opinion now that you've been through like your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s? Is there a better prime?
No. Well, it depends on what kind of prime you're talking about. I think physically, I think I was in my prime. Whether I was in my prime mentally, I don't know. But I think, I hope to think, or I would like to think that we become more sensitive and more aware and a little brighter about the decisions we make as we get older, because this was obviously not a good decision I made. However, it turned into being a great move for me, because it was the reason I met Bill. If that makes sense. So anyway, the story is my trip almost to the Grand Canyon. I was working for a surgeon at the University of Pennsylvania, and I had been on my own with these three monstrous kids, two of them who were raising hell constantly, Kimmy and Keith, and I had not had a vacation, and I was exhausted mentally and emotionally from trying to deal with all their shenanigans. And one day I went over to eat my lunch at one of the buildings at the University of Penn on Hamilton Walk. It was called the Christian Association, but I don't know what that had to do with it. But that's the building where I used to go eat lunch occasionally. And I noticed there was a sign up on the bulletin board. Somebody had put a handwritten sign up saying they were looking for someone to help drive and share the driving and expenses to the Grand Canyon. And it gave the date, which was roughly 2 or 3 weeks after that. And I thought, oh, my God, does that sound fantastic? The Grand Canyon, I had never been there, and I thought, this sounds like a reasonable way to get there. And it was one of those crazy things where all the pieces seemed to come together the right way. First of all, I would have to have 2 weeks, and I had to ask my boss if I could have 2 weeks off. He was a surgeon, and he, just getting a day off was occasionally a difficult thing to do, but I guess he could tell by looking at me I needed a vacation. And my parents...
What were you doing? I know you said you were working for a surgeon, but what were you doing?
I was a secretary at that time for this surgeon who was he was a gastrointestinal surgeon who became a cancer surgeon while I was working for him. But anyway, I spoke to my parents, and they said if I wanted to go, they would come stay in the house, in the other house that we lived in Havertown that we rented. And I thought, wow, that sounds pretty good. And then I had to figure. Then the guy I was dating said he would. I said, well, I don't have much money to even do this, because the deal was, well, first of all, I had to meet the person who put the sign up, who put the notice up, said that he, if you're interested, to call. So I called him and told him who I was and I was interested, and he wanted to interview me. which was made good sense. So I went to his place. It turned out he was a graduating MD from the University of Penn. And the deal was that he was going to meet, it wasn't just that I was going to drive out there with him. We would be sharing the expenses and the driving. And then he said if I wanted to, I could, he was going to meet two other doctors out there at the Grand Canyon, at the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and they were going to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And I thought, man, that sounds really cool. That sounds like something I'd like to do. So I told him about my background, and I told him I was divorced and I had kids, and I don't remember exactly everything I told him, but anyway, he seemed to think I was okay. So he said, yes, I would work. And so I guess he was thinking, yeah, I'll do. I think anybody would have done, actually. But so I told my parents, and my boss said I could have off. And so I thought, this is just incredible. All the pieces are coming together. They all seem to fit. So in preparation for that, I needed to buy a new pair of hiking boots because my boots were very old and not very good. So I went to the Army-Navy store in Ardmore, which is close to here. And when I was in there, that is when I met Bill. And he tried to pick me up. And he thought he knew me. And I asked him who he was, and he told me. I said, oh, well, we went to high school together, and we talked for quite a while. And he was going someplace else. He was going on a vacation someplace. And I said, well, I'm going to the Grand Canyon. So we exchanged phone numbers, and that was the end of that right then. And I tucked his phone number in my wallet somewhere and forgot about it. And then the time came to leave. Oh, and it got to be a real big thing that people were talking about in the hospital. That
you were going on this vacation with this strange man?
Yeah, and that we were going to be sharing the same room and the same car and blah, blah, blah until we drove all the way to the Grand Canyon. And he told me I wouldn't need much money because that once we got there, they were going to have all the supplies for the hiking down. They were going to have all kinds of dehydrated food and stuff like that. So all I really needed was a couple $100, which to me at that time was a lot of money. But my boyfriend, everybody knew how desperate I was for a vacation. And I think he gave me $100. And I think I had $100, but $100 of that was to pay for plane fare to come back because he explained to me, the guy that was, that I was going with, that I could go with him on this hike, but then I'd have to figure out my own way home. But I didn't have to worry about food and stuff. So all I basically had was I had very little with me. I think I had the pair of jeans that I had on and a very small backpack with my stuff in it. So anyway, the people in the hospital were in hysterics. I mean, they were saying, I remember the people, I used to go to the barbershop on my lunch hours sometimes because everybody in there was a lot of fun, and they were always trying to fix me up with somebody. And they said, oh, this is going to be something. The barber, who was a real character, said to me, oh, he's going to be in your pants before you ever leave Pennsylvania. And I said, I don't think so. I said, he just didn't appeal to me, and if he didn't appeal to me in any way at all, and I'm sure I must not have appealed. He just seemed very businesslike, and I really didn't think that he was going to want to do anything simple. And so if I had thought about that, I mean, if I had sensed that, I would not have gone. And I was right about that. I was very right about that. So he wanted to use me for other reasons. So anyway, the day came and I left, and I was really excited. It was in April, or it was about this time, I think. It was just about this time because, well, anyway, now that I'm thinking more about it. So anyway, we started driving and we took turns driving, and we both wanted to do it as cheaply as we could because, we ate at McDonald's, we ate crap the whole way. And we got one room and we slept in the same bed, and there was no hanky-panky at all. we would chat and we would go to sleep and we'd get up the next day and we'd drive again. It's an awfully long drive.
Yeah. How
so
long
anyway,
did it take?
I think it took close to 4 days.
Oh wow.
It was pretty far. So anyway, and of course along the way, I started talking about Kimmy and Keith and all the stuff they were getting into, like drugs and alcohol and God knows what. I didn't even know what all, but I was saying what a difficult.
How old
were they?
Time? Yeah, I guess they
maybe 15 and 14 or something, or 16 and 15.
You said this was 74, so my mom was already 18 at this point, 17 or 18.
She wasn't the one giving me the problems, so it was.
Well, she was old.
Yeah, I think they were maybe 16 and 15, or I think Cindy was 16 when I married Bill, so maybe they were 15 and 14. But they were into everything. I mean, they were doing all. Paul was out of our life, and he was the one who had been the disciplinarian. And I knew that when I left him, I knew that the pendulum was going to swing. That they were probably going to be wild and crazy for a while, but I just never dreamed that it was going to be for such a long period of time and that the pendulum was going to swing so far. And it was driving me half nuts. I mean, and you can't lock a kid in their room when they, there's nothing. You can tell them. You can say, don't do this. This, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that, but they can do it anyway. You can't watch them. So anyway, I guess I started talking about them and all the problems I was having with them. So anyway, I guess it was on the it might have been the fourth day. And we were getting very, very close we were in New Mexico. We had come into New Mexico, and I remember the first time I saw New Mexico. I mean, it was so beautiful. We came over those sandy hills, and the sky was really blue, and it was beautiful. And all those little, what do you call those houses? They're made out of stucco. What are they called? I forget. But they're all like that pink. They're all like that pink stucco, and they're all like, it just looks like another world, and it was just gorgeous. And he said, let's stop. He seemed to know his way around a little bit when I thought back about it later. He said, we're going to go through Santa Fe. And he said, let's stop and get a really nice lunch. And I thought, boy, that sounds good. Because we've been eating crap for 3 days. So we went to this really cool little restaurant. We had this wonderful lunch. And then we went back to the car, and we were getting really close at that point to the Grand Canyon. I don't know exactly how close it was, but we were a state away, maybe. So anyway, we got back in the car, and we were leaving Santa Fe, and he was driving, and he said to me out of the clear blue sky, well, I guess you know this isn't going to work. And I said, what?
Okay.
I said, what? He said, this is just not going to work. I said, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about?
What?
And he, what? What?
No, I'm just like, that's what I said. I said, what?
Yeah, I thought I heard him wrong. And he said, well, we're not of the same generation. We're much different. We're much different ages or something. And I said, well, you knew that before.
Right.
You interviewed me before, and it was fine then. And I thought, and I was really starting to get upset. And so he said, well, it's just not going to work. And so finally he told me, he said, well, the people that we were going to meet, these other two doctors, they were bringing something called coyote or some. It's some kind of hallucinatory. What is it called?
Oh, yeah, I think peyote is right. That sounds
It's some kind of a mushroom. It's a mushroom or something. I don't know what it is. I've never been good about that kind of stuff. Anyway, he said, well, these other two doctors and we were going to experiment with this stuff as we're going down in the Grand Canyon. with these these hallucinatory drugs. And because he heard me talking about my kids being, how I disapproved of my kids and what they were doing, he figured that I was going to be a real wet blanket on their parade. But he was excuse me, he was very, very smart, because he waited until we were almost there to tell me,
To get all your gas money and driving out of the way.
Exactly. I think he knew that. He probably knew that. I was probably the only stupid ass that answered the advertisement, And he probably thought, well, I'll take this woman, and I'll use her until I get almost to the Grand Canyon, and then I'll dump her. And I was really angry. And he said, well, we're going to be experimenting with this stuff, whatever it was called. I don't know. It was I thought it was a mushroom or something. I don't know what it was, but it didn't sound very appealing to me, and he knew that. And I was so angry. What I felt like saying was, stop the car and let me out right here. That's what I wanted to say. And then I thought, no, Diane, you don't know where the hell you are. You're in the middle. You're in the middle of a desert. You don't have much money. You don't know where you are. The sun is out and it's hot as blazes. And if somebody comes along and picks you up, you might get in with somebody who's a crazy man or a woman or anything. And I thought it was better, as angry as I was, I held my anger back and I said, just whatever the next big town is that we get to. Well, I don't know where it is, but just let me out. Just let me go and let me alone. So he said, okay. And I think actually the next big town we got to, I had no idea what I was going to do. I think we were actually almost in Flagstaff. And I did some quick calculation in my brain about what kind of money I had and what I was going to do and how I was going to manage. Here I was with a 2-week vacation. Excuse me. And I'm not used to talking this much. Anyway, he said, I realized then that I had a credit card with me that I had just recently gotten that was for gas. It was only going to be for gas. But I noticed, I had read on the back of it before I looked at it, that it was also good for some hotel chain. Some, I don't know what it was, Hilton. That wasn't Hilton's. It was I don't remember, but it was. And I said, just let me out. And I thought, I hope I can find a hotel that has that, that I can use that credit card for. Mm-hmm. And I did. I don't remember what it was, but I found one. And I thought, well, I'm all the way here. I might as well go. And he had the gall to ask me. He did drop me off and in that town, but he wanted to know if he could stay overnight. And I thought, you son of a bitch, you.
Hell no.
I said, no, not this time. So anyway, I got there and I thought, well, it'd be kind of stupid not to go to the Grand Canyon now that I'm so close, because I may never go again, and I did not. But so I used the credit card. I think I stayed there 2 nights at that hotel, whatever it was. And one day I took some kind of a jitney or something, and I went to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and I felt like yelling down there, hey, if you're down there, you jerk, I hope you're having fun with your hallucinatory stuff. Anyway, and then I thought, what am I going to do? I've got all this vacation time, and am I going to turn around and go home with my tail between my legs? And so Brian at that time was living with Paul. They had moved to California. Paul had remarried to Denise, and they had taken Brian with them to California. And so I called them up, and I said, I'm in the Grand Canyon, and I'm thinking about coming to California. So they said, come. So I had meanwhile found out that Greyhound Bus had this really wonderful deal called AmeriPass, like America Pass. Yeah. And you could buy, for $100, you could buy a ticket for the Greyhound Bus, and you could go anywhere you wanted to go for 2 weeks. You could get on get on and get off and get on and get off, and it didn't say you could sleep on the bus, but I did that too. And so I bought, so for $100, I think I had $200 with, that was it. So I took $100 and I bought the Mary Pass, and I got on the bus and I went to California, and I stayed with Paul and Denise and Brian for a couple of days, and they were very sweet. They paid one night for me to have an actual hotel room in town somewhere where they lived, and for Brian to stay with me. And Brian and I had this great time because I hadn't seen him for months, almost a year, I guess. And I remember.
Where were they living?
I can't remember the name of the town. If somebody said it, I would remember it. She was delightful.
California.
It was near Los Angeles, someplace.
Oh, okay, so down south.
But I can't. It was 2 words. But anyway, Brian and I had this great time together, and then I got back after 2 days, and I went and I got back on the Greyhound bus. And I went all over, and I had the most wonderful vacation I ever had. And I didn't have any kids hanging all over me and screaming and fighting and saying, he looked at me, Mom, he did this, he did that. I would get on and off the bus. I went to San Francisco. I went to barbershops. I had fun going in, and I always liked barbershops. And so I would look for a barbershop, and I would go in and chat for a while, and then I would go out and walk around. And when my money started, all I paid for was food, and I was eating just nothing practically. And and then when I was tired, I would wait and find the best stop, and I would wait, and I would get on the bus and sleep until I got to the next place.
When you go into these barbershops, like, when they ask, like, do you want a haircut, you just say no, and then start talking to them, and they're just like, oh, okay. Is that normal?
Yeah.
Is that normal?
Right. Well, I was really good friends with the man who was the barber at the hospital, and he always. Hold on, just a second. I'm doing my story with Jessica, so I'm going to be a couple more minutes, okay? And then you're going to get some leftovers again. All right. Bill's coming down the steps. I have some leftover chicken thighs and rice. So anyway, I would go into the barbershop, and I would just tell them that I had a good friend that was a barber, and he was always looking out for me, that barber. He was a really funny guy. His name was Larry, and he knew all the doctors, and he knew who was married and who was divorced and who was available and blah, blah, blah. So he was the one that was telling me, well, he said, man, that guy's going to be in your pants before you leave Pennsylvania. He was so sure. But anyway, but he was wrong. But anyway, so that's what I did. And it was like I was free. Do you know what I mean? It was like I had no responsibilities. I had no plans. For the rest of those, it was at that point, it was like, maybe 10 days or less. I forget exactly how many days, but I ate almost nothing. I just would sleep, and then I would get off wherever I felt like it and look around and then get back on the bus. I remember going through Salt Lake City. I remember it took a long time to get back. It took a long time to get home. And I think by the time I got back to Pennsylvania, I think I had about 15 cents left in my pocket.
Oh.
But yeah, I was really playing it close. But I never was sorry. I never felt like it was the wrong thing to do. I felt like I had this. It was the craziest thing, the way it happened. I felt. But it unfurled just the right way. And then I think I got home not long before Memorial Day. So I know it had to be this about this time. Yeah. That many, whatever year that was, when I was 39.
Did anybody know where you were? Like, did you call home, tell people, or you just were like, meh, I'm out here already?
I do remember. I do remember that I sent my boss, the surgeon, I sent him a postcard, and it was the old days when the mail was moving, and when I sent him a postcard from California, and when I got back, he said, "Where the hell were you?"
Yeah.
He said, "I thought you were going to be in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and I get this postcard from California, San Francisco," and
Yeah.
I told him what happened, and he was livid because he was one of the doctors at Penn, the University of Penn, that was in charge of picking all of these students who were the medical students, who was going to get, and
he knew that.
And he was one of the ones that had picked him to come to Penn, and when he found out what he did, he was livid. He was really livid. Oh, I forgot to tell you one thing. The one thing that I have never forgotten is that before I got out of the car, when the guy was leaving me out after he gave me all this bullshit, I said to him, I looked at him and I said, "You know what?" I said, "If I were you, I would always wonder what happened to me."
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and he said, "If I didn't think you could handle it, I wouldn't do it." And I thought that's a pretty, what is that? A two-edged sword or something? A double, you know what I mean? It was kind of a compliment, but it was.
Yeah, exactly. Like did he mean it as a compliment or was it not a compliment? But you did handle it.
I think he sort of meant it because I think he felt that I was going to be able to handle it somehow, and he didn't really care. But I think I kind of think that maybe if I had fallen apart at the seams and begged him to continue, maybe he wouldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it worked out fine because I got home not too long before Memorial Day weekend, and that's when Bill called me because the girl that he had been dating went away for Memorial Day weekend, and he didn't have a date, and he found my phone number in his wallet. So I had actually looked in my wallet the same day and was cleaning out my wallet and found his phone number, and I had called him, but there was no answer. And this was the days before cell phones and answer phones and all of that stuff. None of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I called him, his phone just rang and rang and rang, and he never answered. And I think it was the same night, or maybe it was the next day, he called me back, and he said, I don't know whether he told me he had been cleaning out his wallet, but he wondered if I was busy on Memorial Day weekend. And that's history, Here I am 45 years later, sitting in the house giving him leftovers for dinner. So it turned out, in the long run, it turned out to be a pretty smart move. I mean, if I hadn't gone on that trip, I never would have met him because I wouldn't have gone and bought new hiking boots or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I guess you never used.
I used them, not for that. Well, I did use them actually when I was out there, but then I didn't use them much after that. But it's really.
So what was he there for?
He was his company was having some kind of a convention in down in some island, and he was in there to get a bathing suit, to buy a bathing suit for going away. And then the funny thing was, we stood there and talked for so long in the Army Navy. You know what the Army Navy store is? Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah, we used to have one. Where was it? I think in New Mexico there was one that we would go to.
Yeah, well, they would sell outdated, like, Army Navy equipment and, like, camping equipment and fatigues and all kinds of stuff that you would use for camping and stuff, and boots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there was one in Ardmore, so he was there to get that, and I was there for my hiking boots. But we stood there and talked for a while. I guess we talked until almost closing time, and finally one of the men said to us, he said, you guys have been standing here for a long time, and this is not a dating service here. And they basically kicked us out. And that was in May. And it was in May, and we got married in August. We got married
that same year.
Yeah, We got
No
married
kidding.
on the 23rd. Yeah, we got married on the 23rd of August. And
Aw.
when we were celebrating our first anniversary, we took a bottle of wine and we went back up to the Army Navy store and gave it to the people that worked there and said, you know,
That's awesome.
you weren't running a dating service, but it worked out pretty well for us. So yeah,
awesome.
so
It's still there?
that's all. Is a store? No, it closed a long time ago.
Oh,
No, it's not there. But anyway,
wow.
I guess part of that story is about my feeling about letting things unfurl. I think that's one of my favorite words. Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that I think a lot of people make very definite plans and they set goals and they do all these things and they have very set ideas about what they want to do and follow through, and that works for some people. I mean, I guess it works for a lot of people, but I think my life has always worked better when I just sort of let things unfurl the way they naturally do. You know, that they let things not exactly take their own course. That's not quite what I mean, but sometimes when you just let things unfurl, it's better than trying to manage them and manipulate them and drive yourself half crazy trying to meet goals and all. And what?
Trying to force something.
Yes, exactly.
It sounds like when you say unfurl too, it reminds me kind of like of your flowers, like a blooming flower almost.
Yes.
Unfurling.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the way my life has. I've done okay with my life when I've let myself bloom. That sounds kind of crazy. And I know that doesn't work for everybody, and I know a lot of people, probably the majority of people, are not happy with that. But and a lot of people are told constantly, are being preached to about set goals and reach your goals and blah blah blah. But I didn't have goals. I knew kind of what I liked and what I wanted, and I made some bad mistakes. But everybody makes mistakes.
One of them.
But what?
But this didn't end up being one of them somehow.
Yeah, and then when we got married, you know, when Bill proposed to me, he said he wanted to marry. He said he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. That's what he said. He didn't say he wanted to marry me. He just said, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I guess I said to him, well, does that mean you want to marry me? And he said yes. and now I forget why I was going to tell you what I was going to say after that. Isn't that stupid? I can't remember. There was a reason why I told you that, but that wasn't the end. Well, anyway, but I've said pretty much exactly what I remember about the trip, and I would do it. I would do it over again. It worked. I think it worked out fine, and it had its good points, and it was scary at times, but it worked out. It worked out well as far as I can tell. So, I think I better get off and fix the leftovers for him. Are you having a good time? Are you still doing the? Are you still training for that thing in June?
Yeah, it's 3 weeks from now. It's 3 weeks away.
Oh God.
I know. So I ran a half marathon today.
You did?
Yeah, I did a 51 bike mile yesterday.
How long? How far? You ran 51 miles?
Oh, God, no. Yesterday I biked 51 miles, and then today I ran 13.
Oh, my heavens.
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Only a few weeks.
What?
Only a few more weeks, though.
Yeah. Are you sorry? Are you sorry you signed up for it?
No, I was just expecting it to cancel again. So in the back of my head, I was just kind of flitting off, not really serious about training until I realized it was actually going to go. And now I'm like, well, shit.
Yeah. Well, it's like everything else, and like you just do the best you can with it, and it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yep.
You know.
That's the plan.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I better get off and get Bill his supper. So.
All right. Give Pop a hug.
I will, and it's good to talk to you, honey. Thank you so much for your pretty card. Okay, I love you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.